It is 7:13. I will call the meeting to order. Welcome to the April 12th, 2021 meeting of the Wilmington Board of Selectmen. Pursuant to Governor Baker's COVID-19 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the laws, Chapter 38, Section 18, imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. Members of the public who wish to watch and listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner: WCTV Channel 9 Comcast, Xfinity, Channel 37 Verizon Fios, and live stream at WCTV.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Members of the public who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may also do so via telephone by dialing 1-646-558-8656 and enter meeting ID 882-0635-9735. Then press pound and press pound again at the next voice prompt. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the meeting designated for public comments by following the steps previously noted, then press *9 on their telephone keypad. This will notify the meeting host that the caller wishes to speak. All callers using this feature will be placed in queue in the order they enter the prompt. In the event that, despite our best efforts, we are not able to provide for real-time access, we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as we are able. To members, I did just want to make clear that during appointments and during public comments, the microphone at the center of the room will be for purpose of any Zoom attendees. For the public, I wanted to just note that all members of the board are wearing an article of blue, as well as Mr. Hall. Ms. Dalton, as April is Autism Awareness Month. I wanted to thank John O'Neill, our IT director, as always, for helping to facilitate this meeting and make it accessible to residents. And our friends at WCTV, not only for broadcasting this meeting live, but recording this meeting for future viewing. I did want to start with a moment of silence, as I learned this afternoon that a beloved resident, Dick Hayden, passed. Dick was a former Marine, was a long-time member of the Knights of Columbus in town, and also a long-time member of the Finance Committee. So I ask that we sit in silence for a minute to just acknowledge Mr. Hayden's contributions to the town and keep his family in our thoughts and prayers. Thank you. We will go to roll call. All members are present. The board is reconvening from an executive session for the purpose of discussing purchase, exchange, lease, or other acquisition of real property at 201 Lowell Street in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A6, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the town, as so determined by the chairman. And further, to consider the executive session minutes from January 11, 2021, January 25, 2021, February 22, 2021, and March 8, 2021, in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 38, Section 22. I ask that the members please rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do have transmitted the treasury warrants, numbers 39, 39A, 40, 48, 41, and 41A. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bendel, second by Mr. Mahoney. Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Unanimous. Passes. We have no sets of minutes to move tonight, so only 15 minutes late to move to our first appointment, which is the recognition of Scott Smith, tree foreman. I wanted to cede the floor to Mr. Hall for an introduction to Mr. Smith and his years of service to the town.
Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge and extend my thanks to Scott and his family for 41 years of service. And I must say, I didn't realize that Scott actually started out in the public buildings department back in the day, 1980, September, in fact, of 1980, was hired as a custodian for a stretch of time, a very brief stretch, but then transferred to the highway department, became a equipment operator in 1987, was promoted to head groundsman in 2001, then acting tree foreman, and I think trees were the love of his life, I guess, aside from his wife, I'm sure. And then ultimately became the tree foreman from 2002 until present. You know, one of the things that I have to say in terms of my knowledge of Scott, and I certainly Mike and Jamie have a much closer working relationship with him than I did over the years, but one of the things I always appreciated is just his work ethic. When I was out and around town and seeing him with his crews out doing some really difficult work. You know, I don't pretend to know how to cut limbs off of a tree, let alone cutting a tree, but it's dangerous work, it's physical work, and you know, just most recently, one of the things that I recall was March of 18. You may recall this, we had a stretch of tough weather there, and nor'easter took a lot of trees down, and as I recall from talking to Mike and Jamie at the time, we had something like 320 calls in the course of a week. Neighbors, residents calling about downed limbs and trees, and Scott and his crew were out, it seemed like nonstop through that stretch, doing yeoman's work. And interestingly enough, when I had, there was an email that went around to some of my colleagues in neighboring communities asking what we were doing about dealing with the trees. And you know, we had a limited amount of contract work. I think it was something in the order of $1,500 worth of work associated with having limbs and so on removed. But some of the communities were spending thousands of dollars to do the work that Scott and his crew were doing in-house. So I mean, that just, in my estimation, goes to show the level of effort and commitment in the town that he's demonstrated over the years. And you know, I just hope that Scott, you and your family, your wife, enjoy your time now, and hopefully you're able to pursue things that interest you and that you enjoy. So good luck, and we appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Mr. Woods, Mr. McGaul, I want to give you the opportunity as well to acknowledge Mr. Smith.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Jeff, that was very well put. I'd just like to add, you know, Scott's been my employee I've been with the town since 2004, and I'm the one who actually learned a lot from Scott. You know, he's been a dynamite role model. He is really an ideal employee as far as commitment, and he's really had his head held high in regards, you know, to the other guys looking up to him, and that's much appreciated. We're gonna miss that quite a bit. And you know, those storms when you're talking to your brother or your sister who lives in another town, and you say to them, "Well, it really wasn't that bad. Wilmington didn't get it bad. We did, but Scott was out there the night before, taking care of it all. So that's why." And I just want to make sure that people know that. Certainly gonna miss him.
I don't think there's much more that can be added to it than what Jeff and Jamie have already said. Scott has been dedicated. I came here in 1989, and Scott was already been here close to 10 years at that point. And he's always, since that day I first met him, been the first guy out of his door before any of the other foremen, and the case out a lot of times before the superintendent, to get out there and see what was going on and report in and what the damage was and estimate what the type of time it was going to take to get things cleaned up. The town's going to lose a great foreman and a great person, and I wish him well and with his family and his wife to the next chapter in his life.
Mr. Smith, after 43 years, I have to think that that longevity was certainly some support for some of the folks that are with you. So do you mind introducing the individuals that you brought with you tonight?
My wife, Mary Beth, my son, Derek, and his wife, Danielle.
as custodial worker, laborer, equipment operator, head groundsman, acting tree foreman, for the past 19 years as tree foreman for the town of Wilmington. We recognize you for your faithful and devoted service to your profession and to the department in which you serve. Your many years of service to the town and to the citizens of Wilmington are most appreciated, and our sincere wishes are extended for you for a happy and fulfilling retirement. And I want to invite you to present this with you. Ms. Dalton's going to be taking it with board members. Certainly are welcome to join at a socially distanced level if you care to.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
So I want to move to our next appointment, which is with Jamie McGaldy, the operations manager and tree warden, regarding the Tree City USA designation. Mr. Bendel informs me that there's an audio issue and folks at home are having difficulty hearing us, so I think we're going to have to speak loudly, perhaps shouting. So good luck, Mr. McGaldy.
Thank you. I'd like to start by saying that we're overturning Scott's retirement now, we're bringing him back on board. Good evening again to the board. For those at home that don't know me, my name is Jamie McGaldy, Operations Manager for the Wilmington DPW, and also very proud to be the town's tree warden. I have been since 2013. Here to share some great news tonight. DPW received word from the National Arbor Day Foundation that the town has earned its very first designation as Tree City through the Tree City USA program for calendar year 2020. This award helps recognize Wilmington for the many efforts and investments made by various departments in tree care, tree conservation, and urban forestry planning. So a little bit about the program. Tree City USA is an annual designation earned by citizen towns throughout the country that have demonstrated proactive efforts in tree management. The designation is made by the National Arbor Day Foundation, and to date there are approximately 3,400 cities and towns that have earned their Tree City designation. The designation has been listed as a primary goal in the town's open space and recreation plan, which is currently being edited by the Open Space Committee. The goal of the Tree City program is to recognize the local efforts and help raise awareness to those who may not be aware of the critical role the urban tree canopy plays in the environment and also in the community in general. Towns that receive Tree City designation typically see their residents getting more involved in their own tree planting, and they're better appreciating the benefits that trees provide, including cleaner air, increased property values, stormwater benefits, and community spirit. Kristen Ramstad, who is the Oregon Community Forestry Manager, said it best, and I'll quote her: "Healthy trees advertise a healthy community, and the Tree City USA program helps a community advertise that it values improving its trees on behalf of its residents." It really sums it up right there. Some of the board members, Mr. Bendel, Mr. Kyra, may remember back in 2018, I presented to the board some of the many benefits of tree plantings, which include air quality improvements and carbon dioxide reduction, energy conservation benefits, heat island reduction, stormwater benefits through erosion control and the reduction of stormwater runoff, and also increased property values. So how did Wilmington finally earn the Tree City USA designation? Well, to be considered for a tree city, communities have to meet 4 standards. The very first standard is that the community must have a tree board or a department. The DPW meets this standard because the DPW is responsible for the care of all trees on town property, and that includes school property, town parks, public parks, and other town parcels. And the tree warden oversees the management of public shade trees within the public right-of-way. The town of Wilmington, therefore, has met this standard since the inception of the tree division, so this was an easy one to cross off the list. We've been doing this all along. Standard number 2, the community must have a tree care ordinance that provides guidance for planting, maintaining, and removing trees from streets and other public spaces, as well as activities that are prohibited. The ordinance may be flexible to fit the needs and circumstances of each individual community. The National Arbor Day Foundation recognizes Massachusetts communities for their adherence to Mass General Law, Chapter 87, which is the public shade tree law. And that's what we use here in Wilmington when we go to consider the removal of a healthy public shade tree. We rely on Mass General Law, Chapter 87. So we don't specifically have to have our own ordinance. The fact that we're relying on state law is good enough. But in addition to that, the Wilmington Conservation Commission approved their tree and vegetation removal policy back in September of 2019. This policy sets guidance for the removal of trees within certain distances to resource areas. So anyone looking to remove one of their private trees that may be within a jurisdictional wetland or wetland buffer would want to contact the Conservation Commission, and they'll guide you through that process. But we do have that secondary ordinance, so the checkbox for Standard 2 has been checked. Standard 3, Tree City USA communities must have a forestry program with an annual budget of at least $2 per capita. This one was pretty easy. This standard is used as a measuring tool to show how proactively the town manages its own trees. The figure consists of many factors, including salaries within the tree division, operational budget line items like tools and equipment, and contractual services. And since we have our own tree division, we've met this standard for years. For the purposes of the 2020 application, a conservative analysis showing that the town spends about $11 per capita, which is well above the $2 minimum for the standard. So again, Standard 3 is checked. Standard 4 was the tricky one, but it's really something that we've been doing all along, just really never got recognition for it. So although the tree division was traditionally doing work in the past years that would have qualified as Arbor Day observance activities such as spring tree plantings, the work wasn't being showcased to the public as Arbor Day related. So Standard 4 is you have to have an Arbor Day observance and an Arbor Day proclamation, and that's what brings us here today. As such, the department is now more diligent in sharing townwide efforts with the public, and in 2020, the Wilmington Memorial Library participated in the Mass Tree Wardens and Foresters tree seedling program, giving out 300 Fraser fir tree seedlings back in April 22nd and April 24th of 2020 in recognition of Arbor Day. Arbor Day Foundation was especially pleased with the fact that this program was conducted in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, utilizing socially distant protocols and masks. Funding for this program was provided by the Friends of the Library. I wanted to make sure that that was well known. That was funded by the Friends of the Library, not the operating budget. And so these photos here show that actual program. Down the bottom left, you have Charlotte Wood handing out one of the tree seedlings in a bag using socially distant protocols. And then on the upper right, Library Director Tina Stewart and Assistant Director Charlotte Wood holding up the tree seedlings. So we gave out 300 free tree seedlings, first come, first served basis to Wilmington residents. And hopefully all those got planted. And you know, the percentages with seedlings are generally pretty good, 70% usually take. So even if 10 took out of 300, that's still 10 more trees that Wilmington received. The 2020 Arbor Day proclamation was done via an online message by Town Manager Jeff Hull, observing Arbor Day is Friday, April 24th, 2020. The National Arbor Day Foundation accepted that at the time because of COVID-19, but as stated in future years, they will require a written proclamation endorsed by either the Board of Selectmen or the Town Manager. And I believe later in the correspondence section of this meeting, there's going to be a request for the board to entertain a motion to proclaim April 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day this year. Arbor Day is generally always the last Friday in April. This year it happens to be on the 30th. So what's next? This designation is earned annually, so DPW fully intends to recertify for it every year by reapplying. For 2021, the town needs to submit a written Arbor Day proclamation endorsed by either the Board of Selectmen or the Town Manager, like I said before. Based on the success of last year's seedling program, the Wilmington Library is again planning to participate in Arbor Day seedling giveaway. This year, giving out another 300 trees. We've changed it over to pin oaks rather than Fraser firs. So 300 seedlings will be given away on a first-come, first-served basis on Friday, April 30th from about 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., but while supplies last. And anybody who wants more information on that program can check with the Wilmington Library website, library.org. So toward mid to late April, an official Tree City USA recognition letter will be sent to the town manager, including a press release, and that'll be issued by the National Arbor Day Foundation. What we'll be getting as part of that package is what you see on the screen. We'll be getting a large flag to showcase somewhere in town in a public area. We'll be getting 2 Tree City USA signs, again to showcase in town somewhere, just alerting the public that we've made Tree City. And being our first Tree City in the history of Wilmington, we'll also be getting a small plaque to be displayed somewhere in a public setting, town hall, hallway, somewhere like that. So that should be coming within the next month. This is just a sample proclamation that lots of cities and towns look to get their Board of Selectmen to endorse. I'll just read it real quick. It says, "We, the Board of Selectmen, do hereby proclaim April 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day in the town of Wilmington, and we urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and further, we urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations." And just some brief acknowledgements. The DPW is very pleased to be part of Wilmington's first ever Tree City USA designation. We've worked very hard in the tree department. Again, most of what we were doing would qualify us for Tree City anyway, but we put our pen to paper and actually got the recognition finally, so we're very proud of that. But it really was a town-wide effort, not just the DPW. Specifically, Valerie Gingrich, Director of Planning and Conservation, Tina Stewart, the Library Director, Charlotte Wood, the Assistant Library Director, was invaluable, especially with her work on the seedling program. Appreciate that very much. The Friends of the Library for funding the tree seedling program as well. The DCI's Urban and Community Forestry Program for helping me with the application. And last but certainly not least, the men and women of the DPW who, help us implement all these plans moving forward. Again, going back to Scott, we put this little collage together for him. I know he can't see it from where he's sitting, but just a reminder, April 30th is Arbor Day, and Tree Foreman Scott Smith retiring after 41 years, 43 years with his CEDAR program experience. It's amazing because I'm not even 43 years old, so the fact that he was with a single employer for longer than I've been alive is amazing. But certainly a huge, huge part of us getting Tree City USA, and I appreciate that. And that's the program.
Thank you, Mr. McGall. Any questions or comments from members of the board?
Mr. Chair, I would just, through you, if we could take the agenda out of order. So if you think that's appropriate, while Mr. Smith and his family is still here, and Jamie and Mr. Wu.
Absolutely. So at this time, I entertain a motion under item number 6 on the agenda, signing the proclamation declaring April 30, 2021 Arbor Day in the town of Wilmington. Motion, Mr. McCall. Second by Mr. Bendel. Discussion. Mr. McGall and Mr. Smith, thank you very much for your efforts on this.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Passes. Yeah. And I will I'll sign my copy and I'll send it down. You got a signature copy yourself?
Yep.
All right, thank you very much, folks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Again, we'll go to our 7:15 appointment with Kevin Trainer, UGLSP Senior Associate at GU Insight regarding the results of the Cancer Study and Environmental Protection Agency record of decision for the Olin Superfund site. Mr. Trainer, can you hear me all right?
I can.
Thank you, Mr. Trainer. No, last three weeks has been pretty significant on both of these fronts. I wanted to give you the opportunity, first on the childhood cancer study, to summarize as best you can what it is, what its scope was, and what the study found.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the board for giving me this opportunity to come in tonight. As you know, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health recently issued the Wilmington Childhood Cancer Study, which was focused on the original detection of unusual cancer rates among children in the 1990s. The study was implemented quite some time ago, I want to say approximately 20 years ago. I've taken a look through the DPA study, the slideshow that they presented, and also the studies behind the slideshow. One thing I did want to point out is that I'm a geologist and a licensed site professional. I'm not a toxicologist. I looked through the study with an eye on the relevance of the study to our understanding of what's happened at the Olin site and potential effects that might play out into the future of the Olin site. I'm not qualified, though, to speak about the toxicology or the public health findings of the DPH report. I will go over and reiterate or present the findings that they had presented. So I'll quickly summarize those, then I'll go through the information that I had seen. The study had basically concluded that there was an association between prenatal exposure to NDMA. NDMA is one of the chemicals that are characteristic at the Olin Chemical Superfund site, or a combination of NDMA and a chemical called trichloroethylene, TCE, and childhood cancer. The study indicated that the results were statistically significant between prenatal exposure, that is exposure for pregnant women, and childhood cancer. Now, one thing that the study did note was that for exposure to children, for exposure to NDMA or TCE during childhood, there was no evidence of increased odds of cancer. So it seems that the exposure concern was with women who were carrying children and not the children themselves. There are some limitations associated with the study. It was a small sample size, and there was some significant modeling that was conducted in order to estimate exposure. And it's difficult to do this type of modeling because it's going backward in time, and they're retroactively trying to estimate exposure based on these modeled concentrations. So there are some limitations in the study, but I think the study conclusions speak for themselves. There were some interesting components from a technical perspective that were relative to the Olin site. So I think it was useful from my perspective in looking at the data behind the study and some of the modeling that was done. And in looking at this, I would characterize it as it was a terrible event that had occurred several decades ago. The event happened in the past, and the remedies that were implemented appear to have been effective. The wells in the impacted area were shut down in 2003 after the detection of NDMA. Currently, most of the water in the town is sourced from MWRA. It's no longer contaminated with NDMA or TCE. And the study noted that childhood cancers in the town of Wilmington returned to normal rates in 2001. So this looks like it was a terrible event that had occurred, but there's no current contamination issue with NDMA or TCE in the town now, and the childhood cancers appear to be within normal rates associated with that.
Thank you, Mr. Trainer. Any questions or comments from members of the board? All right, Mr. Hall, I know your correspondence will be handling up under communications, but I do want to thank you for your letter written just subsequent to the study being released, advocating for the EPA to create a national standard for NDMA levels in public drinking water. Certainly it does not exist. ATU's Wilmington or suggests that Wilmington should be used as a case study or an example. But if there is anything positive that can come from this, hopefully it's that other communities don't need to go through this, and that other children are not similarly susceptible to cancer and leukemia and lymphoma because their mother simply turned on the tap and had a glass of water. So the other item that you're here to talk to us about, Mr. Trainer, is the record of decision on the Olin Chemical Superfund site. you were last in front of us last August, after the EPA had released its proposed plan. Can you walk us through a little bit of what the actual record of decision is, and talk us through what happens now?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. So, the EPA just recently issued their record of decision, which basically codifies their proposed plan that they had presented to the town back last summer in August of 2020. The ROD is basically functionally the same, identical as what was originally proposed by EPA last summer. There is a change that EPA is making regarding concentrations, target concentrations for ammonia in surface water, and EPA did reduce that remediation goal based upon comments that they received during the public comment period. But the main structure of the remedy is intact. And so for the Olin Chemical Superfund site, there are 3 what are called operable units, and that's how EPA has carved out the different areas of contamination on the site. The operable units are OU1, which is, well, I'm sorry, I'm saying my operable units confused here.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I can summarize it for you if you'd like, for the EOUs.
Right.
Operable Unit 1 is the 50 acres at 51 Eames Street, including all media, which is soil sediments and surface water except for groundwater. OU2 is the roughly 3 acres of soil, surface water, and sediment areas off property, including the east and south ditch streams, off property west ditch stream, portions of the Maple Meadow Brook wetlands, Landfill Brook, and North Pond. And OU3 is the all groundwater both on and off property, and includes the soil located below the water table.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been spending so much time thinking about the main focus of our work has been on operable unit 3. And for a moment there, I lost my thought process on the other 2 operable units.
It's fine, Mr. Chairman, I have to look it up every time too, so. On this record of decision, it's split. I'll say it's split functionally into 2 components. The record of decision ROD is a final determination for operable units 1 and 2, and so it codifies the remedial actions that are proposed for those 2 areas. For OU3, which is the groundwater impacts and the area that has been under much discussion and is associated with the NDMA impacts that impacted the water supply wells, the town's water supply wells in the Maple Meadow Brook aquifer. This ROD is an interim ROD. So it is proposing an interim remedial step of starting remediation to remove the DAPL, which is dense aqueous phase liquid, which is basically a dense brine that is the source of the contamination in groundwater that's heavier than groundwater, and it's sinking down onto the bedrock surface. And then, so the remedy is to start remediation of that DAPL, and then also to start remediation of what's called the highly contaminated groundwater. EPA has said that they are looking at this. This is an interim step for these impacts. In the future, there will be a separate ROD that's issued specifically for OU3 for this highly impacted groundwater and DAPL. But right now, EPA is interested with starting the remedial activities and starting actually to do some remediation at the site. And so they think that they have enough information to start with this interim proposed remedy, and then they will come up with a final record of decision at some point in the future after the remedial work has started, and then that final remedy will identify the final cleanup goals for groundwater and DAPL at the site. EPA had noted a few things that, so in this point now, the project is now moving to the remedial design phase.
And as part of this remedial design, there are going to be pre-design investigations, what are called PDIs, that will obtain data in order to get the specific design parameters that will be used. Right now, EPA has proposed sort of a broad brush approach, conceptual approach for some of this. And now it's time to get the information, to get into the details. Things like where exactly wells will be located, where will piping be located. And so these pre-design investigations are going to be starting up as the design work starts to kick into gear. And EPA has noted that these PDIs, they had indicated they want these to be focused and implemented speedily so that active cleanup can be started as soon as possible. I should also point out that when the original proposed plan was put out for comment, we had provided some comments, and EPA agreed with some of our comments, particularly with some of the ones that, in looking ahead into the future for the groundwater cleanup, one of our recommendations was that the system should be designed with expansion in mind, so that although this interim step is to clean up sort of these really hot areas, then in the future, once those hot areas are cleaned up and the focus of the system starts to shift into the less contaminated areas, but still the areas that warrant cleanup, that the system can be readily expanded to accommodate that. As far as the schedule, now EPA is going to be working on getting their steps together to initiate a consent decree with a responsible party. So there is going to be activities that EPA is going to be implemented to get that consent decree. It'll probably be on the order of a year or so. There will be a comment period for the consent decree. During that time period that the consent decree is being implemented, there is ongoing work that's being conducted at the site right now to obtain data, particularly in areas where there is insufficient data on what the groundwater contamination is in some areas in the DAPL. And that data gap work, those data gap investigations are going to be ongoing, and some of the pre-design investigation work will also start up and will be operating on parallel tracks with the data gaps work, and then EPA is going to be working on the consent decree. So EPA has indicated that they are looking to hold a public meeting to discuss the ROD sometime early May. And then they are planning to have ongoing, continuing informational meetings with the public about every 6 months or so. And so I believe also for their first meeting that I think that they're planning to, or they're hoping to schedule in May, that EPA has also been reaching out to the Department of Public Health to see if they would also come in and participate as far as then both the childhood cancer study and the ROD could be discussed and questions could be asked of both parties. I don't know right now if DPH is going to be participating in those meetings though at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Trainer. So the interim action on the DAPL and the groundwater hotspots, you've mentioned will ultimately be a final action on that, record of decision on OU3 specifically. When can we expect that to happen? Understanding that we can't nail down a date years in advance, but what is your expectation as to when that will happen?
There isn't a date right now. I think what will happen is final future ROD will be implemented after some period after the remedial efforts begin, and EPA can see how those remedial efforts are functioning and how effective they are recovering groundwater. I would expect, or I should say, I probably would not expect that final rod to come out within the next several years. I would expect that to be some time off after the remedial activities get implemented and started.
Your firm, Mr. Trainer, the town, the members of this board, both present and past, had certainly been advocating EPA for quite some time to really accelerate and get to this point, but as a record of decision. My understanding of the record of decision, I think the bottom line is that continued advocacy is really going to be needed, because this is a decent start, but there is a lot of leeway ahead. There's a lot of uncertainty ahead with respect to cleaning up the groundwater, and we don't even yet have a final plan. Now, my expectation is that cleanup of that property is probably going to be going on long past my lifetime, simply just given the scope of the contamination. But am I correct in assuming that essentially this is a good step along the way, but we can't let off the gas pedal yet? We need to continue advocating to the EPA to really hold the potentially responsible parties feet to the fire to clean up the damage that has been done.
I agree with that, and I think that that's exactly the right way to characterize it, that this is an important step, but certainly a lot more work needs to be done. And while it's promising to finally have some progress being made on actual conducting remediation, I think certainly it needs to be done expeditiously, and continued public input on that would be certainly warranted.
Thank you, Mr. Trainer. I'm going to open it up to board members and Mr. Hall, Mr. Woods, if any of you have any comments or questions. Ben?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Trainer, thank you very much for being here with us and for your presentation. Obviously, this is a step in the right direction, as you said. I just wanted to say that I'm really excited to hear that there'll be public forums as early May as we approach the middle of April here. I really look forward to those dates. I'm sure you folks will help us communicate those dates to the town manager's office as soon as you know.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Just to note one development which I think is also a positive. As you know, one of the issues that's been talked about repeatedly by Lynn Jennings, the section chief at EPA for the New England area, is the need to deal with these data gaps, so-called data gaps. And part of the effort there requires obtaining right of access to put monitoring wells on private property, and I think there was something in the order of 43 areas that they were focusing on, and it appears they are finally at the point. I think there may be one access agreement that they are working on with the private property owners. That's taken a considerable amount of time, but as I understand it, once that's in place and these monitoring wells can be installed, that will assist EPA and Olin's consultants in identifying the particulars about the contamination in the area where this contamination has gone. So that's another good sign.
Chair, Mr. Trainer, thank you for being here tonight and giving us an update. Just to double back on the childhood cancer study. So, is there a relationship between the elevation of the childhood cancer and the Olin site? Did you say yes, there was, or there was not?
The relationship that was indicated in the study was that it looked like that there was a connection between NDMA and or and TCE exposure to pregnant women and childhood cancer.
From the Olin site?
The NDMA is derived from the Olin site. The TCP is, the sources for that were unknown.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Trainer. It's certainly dense material, but important material on information that the town's been waiting for a long time on both fronts to get some, some answers on, some direction on the cleanup. So we appreciate your continued advocacy and analysis that you're providing us and the town departments. I hope you have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and you as well.
Mr. Hull, you take us through communication.
Yes, under communications, the first item is a memo from Shelley Newhouse, Health Director. This was actually as of Friday midday, in fact, providing a status on the number of COVID cases, active positives at that time. At the time of this memo, it was 81 active positives, 2,361 tested, a positivity rate of 3.4%, and 200 plus quarantine. Later in the day, in fact, late afternoon, she emailed me to say that 81 active number had increased by 10 just in the Friday alone. I'll just read in part what she notes here. I am seeing the most cases coming from daycares, youth sports, organized and unorganized, coaches, instructors, participants, etc. This is a common trend across the Commonwealth. Contact tracing is a real challenge now that school is mostly back in session and the desks are closer than 6 feet. It has been a good collaborative effort between the Board of Health staff and the school nurses. It has also been extremely busy, but we are managing. Please, everyone, register for your vaccine. Vaxfinder.mass.gov. And she also notes via a chart here, there's actually 3 columns. The first column referencing age brackets, the second column referencing the number of individuals, residents within each age bracket, and then the third column represents a percentage, and that percentage is a percentage of the active cases. So for example, the 0 to 19 age bracket, of the 81 cases that were identified at her reporting, 19 or 24% essentially were in that age bracket. In the 20 to 29 year category, years of age, 12% of the 81 active positives were in that bracket. 30 to 49 years, 24%. 50 to 64 years, 24%. 65 to 74 years, 9%, or roughly 7 individuals. And then 75 plus is 7%, or six individuals. So as she notes in her email, and as we've, I think, seen via some of the news accounts, it appears that unfortunately the younger population and in some cases those who perhaps are coaching and active with youth seem to be the ones that are getting hit the hardest. Next is a letter of, this was issued actually on March 19th to the town clerk from Robert G. Peterson Jr. announcing that he was stepping down as moderator. We also have correspondence. Again, this was released previously, the news release from EPA announcing their record of decision. I won't go into all the details, but essentially it highlights the particular elements of that decision as was previously noted by Mr. Trainer. There's correspondence that I sent to Lynn Jennings, Section Chief at EPA, referencing the cancer study, the association that was identified by DPH with respect to NDMA, and really emphasizing the importance of setting a standard, federal standard for NDMA. As you know, there is no federal standard. There's a guideline amount that actually differs from the state amount. And I think this is one of the things that we need to continue to pursue, both at the federal and state level, to establish a guideline, a standard for NDMA. We also have here a press release that was issued late last week by Superintendent Dr. Glenn Brand, just advising the community that Wilmington has reached the next level, so to speak, with regard to our statements of interest on the elementary schools. In fact, the MSBA, Mass School Building Authority, staff personnel are recommending that Wilmington's Wildwood Elementary School be considered and invited into the program that MSBA funds. It's referenced as the core program, and the state would provide assistance in funding a school. I would note that ultimately this has to go before the Mass School Building Authority Board of Directors. That meeting is slated to take place on April 14th. As I say, we are being recommended into the program, but ultimately the board must make that decision, and we will find out on Wednesday the 14th whether in fact we make the final cut, so to speak. Next is a email from Selectman Bendel, and I'll defer to Selectman Bendel for an update.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. And so last week I wrote this memo to my colleagues that the Senior Senate Committee recently held 4 public interviews over the course of 2 nights, Wednesday, March 31st, and Thursday, April 1st of 2021. The committee interviewed 4 architectural design firms: Catalan Architecture, Kalo and Beanick, Dietz and Company, and BH&A. Also in attendance was our OPM, Dan Pilata, of P3, Project Planning Professionals, and Town Manager Jeff Hall. Each of the 4 candidates were very impressive, and it was a very difficult decision for the committee to make. After careful consideration and healthy amount of deliberation, the committee chose Dietz and Company. Mr. Pilata will be sending thank you letters to each of the 3 firms that were not chosen, and thanking them for their interest in working with the town of Wilmington. And meanwhile, Mr. Pilata has contacted Kerry Dietz, the president of Dietz and Company Architects, to inform her of the town's desire to engage in their services for a feasibility and design for a new senior center. An appointment will be made within the next few weeks with Town Manager Jeff Hall, Dan Pilata, and Kerry Dietz to negotiate the terms of agreement, and I'll be assured to keep the board apprised of any developments. Thank you.
Next, similarly, as we progress down the road with the senior center, a similar process is taking place with the town school admin building, and I will defer to Selectman Kyra to provide an update on where things stand on that one.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Proposals for the architect design services for the school and town administration building were due back to the town manager's office on Wednesday, April 7th. 6 firms submitted proposals. The proposals have been distributed to the committee. The committee is reviewing each of those proposals and going through a rating process at this point in time. And we're expected to have a meeting of the committee around the last week of April, with April 26th or sometime thereafter. That way there we can do the interviews, and after we have our discussion, after town meeting, we'll probably make a selection.
Next is memo from me to the board just providing a status on the training efforts that have been made available to us by KP Law. You'll recall part of their legal services agreement calls for providing advisory training sessions. The board back in September ultimately agreed upon 4 different sessions. So the one that was held most recently on April 7th was on the conflict of interest law. It was handled by Brian Riley, who's an attorney with KP. Provided an overview of Chapter 268A, which is the conflict of interest law, to department heads and some assistant level department personnel. I think it was very informative, and just as a reminder, so to speak, on the things we need to be mindful of and watchful of. The next training and the final of the 4 sessions that the board directed us to convene will be held in late May or June. It deals with the procurement laws that govern everything from vertical construction, horizontal construction, supplies and services. And that will be handled also by KP, and I would expect we will have staff involved in hearing that presentation, and certainly any members who wish to participate in that session. And then finally, under correspondence, we have some information from Verizon with regard to some channels that are being removed on or around May 15th. Caracol TV will no longer be available on the SD platform and will be available on the high definition platform.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. We're on to board to consider item number 6 on the agenda. The board to consider the signing the proclamation declaring April 30, 2021 Arbor Day in the town of Wilmington was handled under appointments. Item number 7 is the board to consider signing the warrant for the special town meeting. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
Motion to sign the warrant for the special town meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bendel. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Passes unanimous. Item number 8 is the board to consider the request from the Wilmington Band Parents and Friends to sell cold drinks, pom-poms, and balloons during the Memorial Day Parade. There's a letter from Stephen Sika, the president of the Wilmington Wildcat Band Parents and Friends Association. He writes, "Dear Mr. Howell, the Wilmington Wildcat Band parents respectfully request the use of the front of the Roman House for the Memorial Day Parade for our yearly fundraising activities. As you know, the parade is tentatively scheduled on May 31st, and we would like to be able to set up around 7 a.m. in the morning. We understand that there are strict CDC and food handling guidelines that need to be adhered to based on the COVID-19 pandemic. Our goal would be to sell balloons, pom-poms, canned soda, bottled water, etc., as we have done in the past, if possible. Thank you for considering this request. If you need further information, I can be contacted at, and this is phone number and email.
Make a motion to approve the request.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kyer, second by Ms. Mahoney. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Passes. Item number 9 is the board to consider the request of Mark Bellucci, the president of the Friends of Wilmington Baseball, for the Wilmington High School Baseball to conduct a fundraising car wash at the municipal parking lot on Sunday, June 13th, 2021, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Mr. Bellucci writes, "Hi, Mr. Hall. I am the president of Friends of Wilmington Baseball. We are the fundraising arm for the high school baseball team. We are hoping to have a car wash on June 13th to raise funds for the team. According to Beverly Dalton, it seems that date is available. We would like to run it from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Please let me know if we can hold our event on that day." There was previous discussion last summer as we were through an extended drought as to whether or not we wanted to approve car washes as during periods of droughts, as we are recommending to residents that they not water their lawns, and may have to explain how we are allowing folks to conduct car washes using municipal parking lot and the building for the 4th of July building hose. But I'll leave it up to the board to make a motion, whether that's conditioned upon it not being a drought or a blanket approval.
Make a motion to approve approve the request.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Bengel, seconded by Mr. Mahoney. All those, our discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, passed. The next item on the agenda is item number 10, the board to consider approving the renewal of the secondhand dealer license for Robert P. Flaherty Jeweler Incorporated. There is, this is a secondhand dealer license, it's the renewal, it's for precious and semi-precious metals and jewelry. We have recommendations from Joe Desmond, the police chief, that he recommends approving the license renewal. We have the same also from William Kavanaugh, the fire chief, the same from Al Spalding, the building inspector, and the same from Pamela McKenzie, the treasurer collector. Have a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept license renewal.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Devon, second by Ms. O'Mahony. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, passes. Next item to consider on the agenda, there's actually four to consider items that involve disclosures in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20B, in regards to secondary employment within the municipality. We'll take each of these up individually, but I will just say, just for purposes of not having to repeat myself each of the 4 times, for each of the 4 individuals, the services will be provided outside of their normal working hours as a municipal employee. The services are not required as part of their regular duties as a municipal employee, and for these services, they will be compensated for not more than 500 hours during a calendar year. The first is the request of Denise Bresnahan regarding disclosure in accordance with Chapter 268A, Section 20B, relative to summer employment with the Wilmington Recreation Department. It is for Tiny Tots to be a Kids Club Assistant Program Director. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kyer, second by Mr. DePalma. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, passes. The second such request is from Erin Coden to work with Tiny Tots to be a Kids Club Program Instructor. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms. O'Mahony, second by Mr. DePalma. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, passes. The third is the request of Michaela Hersham to be, also work with Tiny Tots to be a Kids Club Program Instructor as well. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bendel, second by Mr. Kyle. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, passes. And last is the request of Kim Mytek to be a craft class instructor with a recreation class. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, second by Ms. O'Mahony. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, passes. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Mr. O'Neill, do you have any members of the public wishing to call in?
We do not, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, leave it open for a minute. Mr. Shampoo, I see that you've broken in and you need to replace our night watchman, so what are you doing?
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen and ladies, Mr. Hull. I was looking at the calendar. First, I wanted to say thank you, all of you, for your volunteerism, for the time that you take for the benefit of the town, for the people of the town. I think it bears repeating, and I want to be one to say that I especially appreciate the effort that you all put in. So I hope that the townspeople also do as well. But I was looking at the calendar recently, and unless I'm wrong, this night is the last night that you're going to be a member of this, or at a Board of Selectmen meeting. Am I correct in that, Mr.
It
Reed?
is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I'll be darned. I didn't want to let that opportunity slide by. I came here tonight thinking, I got to think of something to roast Mr. Eaton a little bit. And really wrestled with that because, truthfully, there's nothing to roast you. In all sincerity, you are a gentleman among gentlemen. And I really admire, respect you, and I'm very fortunate, I say, to call you friend. The euphemism or the phrase coined by President Teddy Roosevelt, speak softly and carry a big stick, applies very nicely to you. You are one who speaks softly. I think we all know that. Your calm demeanor and calming way of delivery is not to ever be confused with not having a command of the subject, not having a command of a meeting, not being able to mediate a conversation professionally and respectfully. And those are, especially over the course of the last year and several years. Those are qualities that are all so important. So I just wanted to take the opportunity tonight to say thank you for your years of service. 3 here on this Board of Selectmen and 6 on Finance Committee, all volunteer time. Mr. Eaton, thank you. The town owes you a debt of gratitude. I'm delighted that you're going to stay in our service as the town moderator, God willing. So thank you for your willingness to step up and do that. Look forward to watching your calm demeanor there as well. But thank you for your service here, sir. I look forward to continuing our association.
Thank you very much,
Mr. Chair, we do have a caller.
All right, hello, you are, I believe you are on. Can you hear us, caller?
Hello?
Hi, please identify your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Ms. Reed and Judy O'Connell, 11 Broad Street, Wilmington, Mass. How are you this evening?
Good evening, Ms. O'Connell. Good, and you?
Sorry I could not be there in person. My dog had surgery today and I was picking her up this evening, so I do apologize for that. But I was notified that this is going to be your last meeting this evening. And I wanted to take this moment to extend my best wishes to you and to thank you for your many years of service to the town in various capacities. I understand your reasons for deciding not to continue, and I'm thrilled that you are running for the town moderator position, and I think you will be outstanding. I wanted to just say to you that I think you're a consummate professional, and you have done such a great service for the town. You are a joy to work with. You've been very supportive of me throughout the years in my endeavors, and I will always be grateful for having the professional relationship that we've had. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to wish you the very best in all your future endeavors. I consider you a friend, I consider you an ally, and you have done just a tremendous amount of good work for the town, and I'm glad that that's going to continue. So I just wanted to give a sincere heartfelt congratulations to you and to say a sincere thank you, and that I wish you very well, and I will be seeing you out there, I'm sure, in the public settings as soon as we all can get back together again as a group. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. I look forward to thanking you in person. Any other calls, Ms. O'Neill?
Mr. Chair, we do have another caller. I'm unsure if they wish to speak, but I'm going to unmute them.
Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. Hello, caller. If you are able to hear us and wish to speak, please let us know.
Hello.
Hello. Please identify your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, everyone. This is Wilmington, Department of Veteran Services. How are you, Mr. Chairman?
I'm doing well, Mr. Smackley. How are you?
Well, it'd be doing better if we were all in person because your sound system there is not too good. I just want to call and congratulate you on obviously what was a very difficult year, serving in any capacity, I think, in leadership role. This past year has been very trying time for all levels of government, but you, as has been said before, have done it with class, and I admire your leadership, and I want to congratulate you and wish you luck on your future endeavors as moderator. But once again, I will thank you and congratulate you. Sat in that chair for 2 years. I know it's not easy, but I can only imagine what it was this year. So, keep wearing your mask and be safe.
Thank you, Mr. Smackley, and thank you, Mr. Fraud and Ms. Meehan, for the continued hard work and dedication that the three of you put into serving Wilmington's veterans and the veterans supporting community. So certainly, the work that you folks have put in the past year certainly is a lot harder than anything I've done. So certainly very much appreciate it. Mr. O'Neill, do you have any other callers?
Mr. Chair, we do not.
Thank God. We are on to announcements. Any announcements?
Go ahead, Gary.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Bennett.
thank you. First of all, I want to apologize for rushing out at the last meeting. I hope you all give me a pass on that, but I really want to thank each of you, my colleagues, and to Jeff and to Beverly and everybody here who sent us well wishes on a new baby. My wife and I are thrilled. We're very, very blessed to add our third daughter to our house. And as I mentioned the last time, that my middle child now is born, that we are very, very lucky to be able to raise our kids in such a great town like Wilmington. So I really appreciate all the well wishes everybody sent, and the flowers and the cards, and a big shout out to the the Board of Health and Health Department because they were a huge help as my wife was delivering a baby during a very difficult time. So I want to give them a shout out as well. So I really appreciate your well wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bendel.
And if I may, I have another one.
All right.
But I'll yield to anybody else who may have something first.
Do you wanna go like?
We'll go there. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman. A lot of nice things have been said about you this evening, and they're well deserved. I echo those. When I think about a positive leader that I want in my community, I think about somebody like you who does things with a lot of class. You're always very well prepared. Obviously, one of the most intelligent guys I know. We haven't always agreed on every issue, but you've always treated me with respect, and I really appreciate that. And obviously, I understand that your decision to leave the board falls in line with your priorities, which are family first. And so I know you have, I have the good fortune of knowing your family, beautiful young family, wife and 2 kids, and clearly I understand your desire to move in a different direction. But I'm not surprised that it didn't take you long to fill a void that the town had. And so I'm really glad to see you stepping up to take on another challenge, and I wish you success there. But I really appreciate your leadership, and I appreciate your friendship as well. And I wish you well and your family much success.
Thank you, Mr. Bendel.
Mr. Chair, first let me congratulate Mr. Bendel and
Thank you, sir.
his lovely wife Andrea on the birth of their 3rd child. And I too want to thank you for your service and what you've done on behalf of this community. Your leadership, your professionalism, it goes without saying. I echo the comments from my former colleagues and my current colleague. You will be missed, for sure. And to say that he comes prepared, let me tell you. He has that device in front of him, I don't know what that is. I'm a lot older than you, so it's good that you have that, but now we're not gonna have that luxury of you pulling things up and reminding people of what they said, or what we need to address. And, I'm gonna miss that. I'm gonna miss you here. I just, one little advice, if I could, as our town moderator, speak loudly and carry the big stick, not softly. But we've had our differences, and they've been fun, as far as I'm concerned. And they happen and they go away, and that's the way it is, and that's how it works. So I wish you well. I do cherish our friendship, and I'm sure it will carry on for a very long time. So thank you for everything that you've done as chairman and on these 3 years as selectman.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Donald.
I'd like to thank you. Coming on the board during these difficult times, I didn't know whether I was coming or going, and the first chair I was fortunate enough to have was Mr. Bendel, and then it went over to you. I learned a lot. I want to thank you. I now consider myself an expert in holding meetings in cars. I've been working on it, and I think I got it down, and it's thanks to you. You are an asset to the town. I am glad you're going to stay with us as the town moderator, knock on wood, and just thank you very much for everything you did for me coming on to this board.
Thank you, Mr. Donald.
So I get to grab cleanup tonight. So for the first year that I was on this board, I had the pleasure of not only being on the board with Jonathan Eaton, but sitting next to Jonathan Eaton. So I can say that I probably heard more of what he said than anyone else, because I was the only one that was close enough to hear anything most of the time. But I'm not going to comment on your soft-spokenness. I instead would like to point out that another mannerism that I got to pick up super quickly with Jonathan is his love of journals and notebooks for every topic we could possibly be discussing. And that became a joke between us. If I was on vacation and I saw a mermaid journal, I bought it for Jonathan so that maybe he'd have a use for it when mermaids came on the agenda. If you've noticed, you can't see it on the Zooms because he doesn't have the camera angle, but I'm sure there's a stack of journals next to him as he chairs all of these meetings for the last year in these crazy, ridiculous times. So I had to, one last time, as the chair, get him a journal that says, "I'm so freaking freaked out." A journal in which I can furiously scribble the heavily detailed, multi-layered evidence for how freaking freaked out I am freaking out. And you can use this as town moderator or not, but it seemed fitting that this would be the last one I gave you, because it doesn't, I think I only gave you one that had actual swear words in it. But I would say I look forward to our continued conversations. I'm confident that when I call you, you will still answer the phone the same way, which is usually, "What the heck? What did I do now? What are you going to yell at me about?" Or "What kind of chaos have you created?" I also look forward to still responding to your text messages with Hamilton memes so that you can get frustrated with me. But I honestly look forward to us being able to continue to be friends without the open meeting rules around our conversations. And maybe to be able to expand beyond being the legal minds who probably overthink things a little too much in some arenas and drive everyone else crazy when we do so. But I will miss you. I look forward to driving you crazy at town meeting. And here's your journal file. Oh.
Please, thank you. For privacy as you're conducting your meetings in your car.
Thank you both.
Mr. Chair, I also come bearing gifts on behalf of the board and the administration and really all the residents of the town. It's a tradition to present an outgoing selectman with this plaque. And I'm starting to take the hint. This is the second time I've had to do this in about 9 months, so I hope no one else is going anywhere. But it's my pleasure to present to you this plaque on behalf of my colleagues in the town, along with a card from all of us. But it reads, to Jonathan R. Eaton, in grateful recognition for your devoted service to the town of Wilmington as a member and chairman of the Board of Selectmen from 2018 to 2021. There's a gavel here, make sure Cole doesn't get a hold of it, okay? And I also want to give a shout out, and I want to thank Sarah, Hadley, and Cole for lending Jonathan to us on a lot of bedtimes. And I know he's missed a lot of bedtimes to be here, and we really appreciate it. I also want to give a shout out to his mom and dad, who I know are really, really proud. And so on behalf of this board and the residents of the town, thank you so much for your service.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah, I just want to congratulate you. I did want to congratulate you, Mr. Bendel, Andrea, and Charlotte, and Grace on welcoming Madeline to your family. That is very significant and very positive news, and I'm glad that everyone's healthy and happy, and I'm sure your house is happy chaos. I did want to thank you folks, my colleagues. There's a lot of work that goes into the Board of Selectmen in the meetings, and those who might have the habit of watching our meetings might not be able to understand that, as I fumbled my way through meetings for the past 3 years. But certainly there's a lot of work that goes into preparing for these meetings, and I want to thank my colleagues, as I think we've done a pretty good job putting our differences aside and focusing on the big picture as we do the best that we can to move the town in the right direction. I think just as chair the past 9 or so months, it's made my job a lot easier that we've been able to do that, and I think do so effectively. I think I do need to thank the people that supported me just being up to it, whether it was people that just volunteered to sign nomination papers or hold signs, and those who trusted me with their vote 3 years ago. It's certainly not a matter of, or a level of trust that I took lightly during the past 3 years, and I'm very appreciative of it.
And I'm also appreciative of the people that didn't vote for me, but gave me an honest opportunity to earn that trust over the past 2 years. I think the community has been very just fantastic to me, at a time when most people probably just presume that public service is not something that they want to be bothered. And this has been an extraordinarily rewarding position. It has been, if you care about your community, get involved. It doesn't need to be in this forum, it could be in many others. But you get far more out of community when you become an active driving force for change than you do by merely being a passive consumer of what the community has to offer you. If you want the community to be better, get involved and do what you can with what you have where you are. I do need to thank my wife Sarah, who's the love of my life, my most trusted confidant, my best friend, and my favorite person in the world. I think being a family member to an individual that serves in this board is one of the more difficult tasks in town, because you live with in basically 2-week cycles between what happens, and she has been my rock, and I lucked out with her, certainly. I need to thank Abby and Cole, my 2 children, because when challenges have come up over the past year, they are a great reminder of what's important in life. Not that this role is not important, but you need sometimes to be reminded by your kids that it's okay to let loose and just be a fun dad. I do need to thank my parents as well, because I've unfortunately fallen into the pattern of bringing new chaos to the family that perhaps they weren't foreseeing, but certainly their unwavering support over my 38 years is very much appreciative. And I apologize for the chaos that I'm sure I'll be bringing in the next week or two, as that just seems to be my pattern. Mr. Hall, I have to imagine that this was your most challenging year as a professional. There's been new fires to put out pretty much every single day, and I have spoken. Far more days than we have not, many times, several times a day. You've displayed a steady dedication to your job and your ability to weather this storm while avoiding layoffs to the workforce, but also at the same time being able to actually move conversations forward about our several capital improvement needs, I think is a testament to the strength that the town is in. Not everyone is going to agree that things are great, and they're going to disagree on the different tactics and different projects that need to be prioritized. But I think the fact that we can have those conversations and move those forward is a testament to the strength of the town and where it currently stands. To town employees, it really is difficult for me to accurately convey my level of appreciation, and I know it's a level of appreciation that my board members share, for the way in which you have stood up under the very difficult circumstances of the last 13 months, the grit and the flexibility and the creativity that you have displayed in serving the people of Wilmington. It has been absolutely stunning for me to see. It really has been, to watch your strength as you have risen to the challenge in a way that is so humbling to me, and it is one of the biggest honors that I will cherish and take with me forever, that I have been a small part of the team here in Wilmington in the way that you've responded to the challenges of the past 13 months. I know we're not through the woods yet, there's plenty more to go, but if only every community could be so lucky, then they would be Wilmington. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, the employees, for the way in which you've reacted to the adversity that the last year has presented. And lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't spend the last few seconds of announcements here. If I didn't acknowledge that tonight happens to be the birthday of my mother, Rosemary Eaton, and also my mother-in-law, Leslie Smulligan, who were kind enough to schedule their birthdays on the same day. And I also wanted to acknowledge Walter Dalton, who's the father of Beverly Dalton, who is celebrating his 90th birthday here today. Ms. Dalton, I apologize that this meeting has gone longer than I wished it to, in part because of me, and I hope to send you home soon so you can spend more time with your dad. New business. Mr. Howell, will you take us through important dates?
Yes, Mr. Chair. April 14th is a brush drop-off, Old Main Street, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. April 17th, another brush drop-off, Old Main Street, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. April 19th is Patriots Day, town offices closed. April 20th through the 24th is a curbside collection of yard waste. April 21st, another brush drop-off, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Also on April 21st is the Finance Committee public hearing relative to the warrant for the special town meeting. April 21st is the last day to register to vote in the special town meeting. Town clerk's office will remain open until 8 p.m. that day. April 24th is another brush drop-off, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Also on April 24th, the annual town election, polls open 8 a.m. will close at 8 p.m. April 26th is the next Board of Selectmen's meeting, 7 p.m. at the town hall. April 27th is the ice rink and recreation committee meeting, which will be virtual, 7 p.m. May 1st, rather, is the annual town meeting. It starts at 9 a.m. at the Shriners Auditorium. 9:15 is a special town meeting, same place, Shriners Auditorium. May 3rd through the 7th is another curbside collection of yard waste. May 8th is the hazardous waste collection day at the municipal parking lot across from the Common, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then May 13th is the community candlelight vigil, Town Common, 7 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Last on our agenda is our salute to service. Tonight, we celebrate Amerigo M. Enos Sr., better known as Sonny to some. Passed away, unfortunately, at age 91. He was a longtime resident of Wilmington, and he passed away surrounded by his loving family on March 25, 2021. Sonny enlisted in the United States Navy on September 29, 1950, and proudly served our country during the Korean War. He served overseas aboard the USS LST-529 for more than 2 years before returning stateside. He was honorably discharged on March 3, 1954, and returned home to his family. Thank you, Mr. Enos, for your service to this country and to this community. All items on the agenda having been discussed, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bendel, second by Ms. O'Mahony. All those in favor? Passed. Good night, everyone.
Just before everyone leaves, you have some items to sign here, the warrant and those, one other item.